Hello class, this is chapter 8.5, classifying triangles and quadrilaterals. The first type of polygon that we'll be dealing with are the triangles. We classify triangles in two ways. First, by the angle measures, and secondly, by the number of congruent sides. Let's look at dealing with triangles by angle measures. If there are three acute angles, we call it an acute triangle. I hope you remember that acute means that the angle is less than 90. A second way of classifying by angle measures is to say that it is an obtuse triangle, and that is if there is one obtuse angle. Remember, obtuse means an angle that is larger than 90 degrees. The third is to say that it is a right triangle, and that is if there is one right angle. Now, there's 180 degrees in every triangle. If we take the three angles, add them up, we will get 180. So there is no way that a triangle can have more than one right angle. And there is no way that a triangle can have an obtuse angle and a right angle. If it has an obtuse angle, it will have two acute. If it has a right angle, it will also have two acute angles. But we classify by that obtuse angle or by that right angle. Now let's look at how we can classify a triangle by the number of congruent sides. Congruent, if you remember, means it will have the same size. If we have a triangle that has no congruent sides, and you will often see tick marks like this, that means that there are no congruent sides because none of the tick marks are the same. So we call it a scalene triangle. If there are at least two congruent sides, and that's really all you're going to have, then you have isosceles. If there's three congruent sides, such as in number 3, sometimes they'll be tick marked, then we call it equilateral. Equa meaning equal, and lateral meaning sided. Equal length of sides. So if we look at a triangle, how can we classify by its sides and by its angle? Notice that the first thing they talk to you about is sides. So I look for tick marks. In number 1, there are 3 different tick marks. So this is scalene. Then I look at the angles. It is marked that there is a right angle. So by angles, it is a right triangle. We would call this a scalene right triangle. If they ask you to explain, you say no sides congruent. And one right angle. Let's look at example 2. You'll notice here that you have some tick marks. So that means it is isosceles. Oops, spelled that one wrong. Let's try that again. S-O-S-C-E-L-E-S. In the word isosceles, if you'll notice, you have a lot of double letters. You have the double S's and the double E's. Now, I look at all of the angles. And in this case, I'm checking out right here. That angle, it's hard to tell, but it's really obtuse. So therefore, it's an isosceles, obtuse triangle. You could also say obtuse isosceles triangle. The explanation: 2 congruent sides, and you have 1 obtuse angle. The other thing they're going to be dealing with today, this lesson, is quadrilaterals. Quad refers to 4. Quadrilateral, 4-sided. These are 4-sided polygons. The first type is the trapezoid, and that's if you have only one pair of parallel sides. Now remember how they use tick marks to show you congruent sides? They use these kind of arrow type marks that I have circled to mean parallel. Let's look at the next type of quadrilateral. That is a parallelogram. So you go from having one pair of parallel sides to two pairs of parallel sides in a parallelogram. Now there are certain types of parallelograms. One of them is a rhombus. A rhombus is a parallelogram, meaning two pairs of parallel sides, and you have four congruent sides. It kind of looks like a square that's gotten skewed over to one side or the other. I always say it looks like a square that got kind of smooshed over. You also have a rectangle, which is a parallelogram. This is when you have four right angles. In fact, recht is the German word for right. So rectangle, right angles. Another type of parallelogram is a square. It is either considered a rectangle with four congruent sides or a rhombus with four right angles. And the definition can be either one. Our book chooses to use rectangle with four congruent sides, but I included the other definition because sometimes you will see it defined as a rhombus, meaning all four sides congruent, but you also have four right angles. So how are we going to use this information on a worksheet or an assignment? The application is that just as with triangles, you have to determine the best name and explain. We're going to do the same thing here. Determine the best name for each quadrilateral and explain. Now, if I look at this first quadrilateral, I note that I've got a pair of parallel sides here and another pair of parallel sides here. That means I have two pairs of parallel sides. Therefore, I have a parallelogram. And my explanation is that I have two pairs of, and I'm going to use the word parallel. Some people actually use the symbol for parallel, but I'm going to write it out. Two pairs of parallel sides. Okay, look at number 2. What do you have? Do you have a trapezoid? One pair of parallel sides? Do you have a parallelogram with two pairs of parallel sides? Is there a more distinct way of looking at your parallelograms? Is it a rhombus with four congruent sides? Is it a rectangle, meaning it has four right angles? Is it a square? Four congruent sides, four right angles. Well, this one is a parallelogram, all right, but it is a special type of parallelogram because it has four right angles. So it would be called a rectangle. Our explanation here is that we have two pairs of parallel sides, and we have four right angles. And RT period is an abbreviation for right if you don't want to write out the whole word. Now we look at number 3. All right, is it a trapezoid? Is there only one pair of parallel sides? Well, nope, there's two. Okay, that's got to mean it's a parallelogram. Can I get it even more distinct? Is it a rhombus? Do I have four congruent sides? Yes. Well, is it a rectangle? Do I have four right angles? No, no right angles. So it can't be a rectangle, it can't be a square, it has to be a rhombus. And my explanation is that it has four congruent sides. And that concludes lesson 8-5 on classifying triangles and quadrilaterals. Please reply with mangoes. Catch you later.